Hello there. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode. Again, I never remember the episodes. Episode number 14, 13, God knows, on this Healing at Last podcast. So this podcast is probably with one of my favorite people, and going to be on a topic that I am hoping to be educated on, that I am not the expert on, brilliantly so, right? That this guy that I'm about to introduce has a lot more knowledge than I have about the world that we're about to dissect and understand. And I'm going to try and draw on some parallels between the world that he's going to introduce us to, which is the spiritual world, and the world of mindset and the whole idea of bypassing. So without further ado, I am going to introduce Hugh Osborne. Hugh and I have been hanging out for a few years now, and he's going to explain how that has all come to be. Hugh is a therapist in his own right. He's also done our clearing training, so he's a clearing specialist, an APP specialist, an anxiety specialist, all of that brilliant stuff. And I will link at the end of the podcast where you can find him, because you will want to hang around for this podcast to hear the twists and turns of this healing journey, because it is a phenomenal one, and how Hugh ended up back at home in himself. So without further ado, we will begin. Welcome, Hugh. It's lovely to have you. Was that introduction all right? Was it okay?
It sounded fine to me. I'll do my
Good.
best to live up to it. Thank you.
Brilliant, Hugh, brilliant. Okay, so let's begin at the end, I suppose. Begin with clearing, begin with healing, begin having found what you were looking for. And that begins, I think, with a story about somebody's TED talk or something.
Somebody's TED talk.
Somebody's TED talk.
I can't remember her name.
No, I can't remember her name either.
Yeah. So let's start there. Yeah. It was I think the early part of 2020, just before the pandemic hit in, actually. And it was one evening I was sat on the sofa, and I was feeling something I'd been feeling for a while, which is the kind of trail had gone cold in my journey. None of the tools or insights I had seemed to hold anything that could take me further. And I was really at a bit of a loss as to what to do. I'd explored cognitive approaches. I'd trained in those. I'd explored somatic approaches. And anyway, so Jeff Brown, who is someone who I've been in touch with for quite some time, he shared this link to a TED talk suggesting that I watch, and I did. I gave it 10 minutes of my time, and it was your TED talk. And I watched it, and I hope I don't get too emotional here, but by the end, tears were streaming down my face, because I knew that where you were speaking from was the kind of place that I wanted to get to. And I knew that you had the pieces, the method, whatever, to help me get there. Now, of course, I didn't know much about you at all. Sometimes you see these brilliant people, and like, Brené Brown, people like that, you go to the website, can you get a session with them? Can you speak to them? No. So, for all I knew, you could be like that. Anyway, I sent an email off in hope saying, can you help me? And a response came back saying yes. And strangely enough, I almost didn't go to that to that session. I almost cancelled it because I was feeling a bit vulnerable and afraid, but I'm glad I showed up. Yeah.
And I love what you say there about I'd reached the end of my, there was a phrase you used, I'm sorry I didn't write it down, but there was a phrase you used that you'd reached the end of your skill base, you'd reached the end of your tools, you'd reached the end, you'd arrived at a place where no more work could be done, that you had arrived at that.
Yeah, more work needed doing, but I couldn't find the way to do it. I was watching a documentary the other day about how they built the domed roof on the church in Florence. And apparently for 200 years, that dome didn't get built because no one knew how to do it. So it kind of reminded me, I knew what I needed to do, but I did not know how to do it.
So tell me about what you needed. Tell me what you knew instinctively that you needed. What was happening within you at that time?
What was happening was I knew how to kind of get into my body. I could do that through the somatic work I'd done. I knew to some degree how to listen to my pain, listen to my blocks, and kind of hear their voice, what they were communicating. But I didn't know how to follow those pathways in a way, because it turns out in my work with you that those things are pathways. Back to the source, to the root cause. I didn't know how to do that. And my mind would always get frustrated and take over and come up with this piece of evidence. It's linked to that, it's that. And sometimes you get little aha moments. Oh yeah, that makes sense. A little piece drops into place, but sooner or later it starts again, because you've not hit the root cause. And I'm sorry to jump ahead here, but I know from my work with you that the root cause, which is our kind of core wounding, will not be satisfied with anything less than an absolute meeting in its disclosure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a saying for it. It has to die as it was born, in totality. It
Exactly.
cannot survive with the opposite energy that it was born in. It'll disintegrate. But prior to that, so there's this knowledge in you, there's this, and also what is fair to say about you, Hugh, is there's an awful lot of information, there's an awful lot of training, there's an awful lot of awareness. In terms of stage of process, you're at a very high level here. You're in your body, you're available to your body. You've done all the somatic training, you've done all of the cognitive training, and yet you're still spinning your wheels in this place.
Yes.
So at that level that you get to me at, you're in a very high stage of process. You've done an awful lot of grounded work. You've done an awful lot of embodied work. You've done an awful lot of understanding. But the place prior to that, and I'm pulling you back a wee bit, right? Because a lot of people watching this won't even be at that stage, will be locked out of their body.
Yes.
Be available to their inner world, will never have known that their inner world existed, because they've been in such traumatic states that it's too difficult to be in your body. It's too difficult to even be in your head. So we just futurescape the entire time. So prior to that, amazing levels of awareness that you talk about there, what was the stage prior to that? Was there, before you get under your body, and I know we've talked about this before, so I know there was this kind of seeking of spiritual enlightenment. Tell me a wee bit more about that, will you?
Okay. So I'll build from slightly before that, if that's okay.
Right. Yes.
In our initial session, you kind of took me to the core, like pretty quickly. And it was this image which always stays with me, of the child left to starve in the ghetto of Warsaw, and how much I resonated, felt the pain of that child. So, from as young as I can remember, there was this, capacity for love and to give love, and just wanting to love. But the world didn't confirm that. The world confirmed the opposite. And so, gradually there was this, pain that built up of, why is, where is the love, kind of thing? Where is it? And the only place I kind of really knew that was with my parents, my father when I was young, my mother more continually, through until the point where she died. And I think it was kind of around the point where she died where I just kind of looked around and realized that I couldn't find any answers that satisfied what I needed. I needed to know answers, and I
Yes.
couldn't find anything. So I got my backpack and went off to Asia, and I knew I was going looking for something, but I didn't kind of really know what. I knew about Buddhism. I knew about the possibility of enlightenment, the story of Siddhartha, things like that.
I'm just going to stop you there for the
Yeah.
audience. I think it's a really important point. Where the pain within, wherever the pain within comes from, wherever it's sourced, you describe it beautifully, like this lack of love. It's,
Yeah.
much deeper and much more, has much more fruit to bear than that one statement. But that's a beautiful look at what is missing and how difficult and painful that would be in the body.
Yes.
And for everybody listening to this, because we're all human beings, we're all going to have some awareness of that pain. And then there's this, what do we do with it? And I love the way you said that, I went in search. I didn't know what I was in search because you weren't in that levels of awareness, but
Yeah.
you went in search of something. And so for most people listening to this, they're aware of the pain within and they're aware of the search that continues to solve that pain, even if it isn't a direct awareness that you are trying to solve the pain.
Yeah.
Some of us are indirectly solving pain by, and maybe it's not, you talk about, Buddha and some of the lovely principles of spiritualism, but for people listening to this, they could be on a mindset track, on the, perpetual positivity, or on the law of attraction side of it. But you're talking about this kind of spiritual world opening up as you travel through Asia. And what was that experience, and how did that interact with the pain?
Well, initially, it was a bypassing of the pain. I would say there were kind of also transcendent experiences where I would kind of meditate and like go into the experience of my pain to the point where it dissolved and I would feel like I'd attained freedom from it.
Wow.
Yeah. Now that's of course one of the greatest traps of spirituality is the transcendence bypass. Yeah.
So the
You
experience, because you could forgive me,
yeah.
I have a funny story about being asked about meditation. We'll not talk about it now. Um, I don't meditate, and I tried it, but I don't, and it's not my forte. I give it a go, and I know how helpful it is, but so I don't occupy that understanding. I don't occupy that word. So when you go under that meditation and you go under the pain,
Yeah.
there is, what happens in that transcendence is there when you're accessing the pain, it dissolves just from awareness itself.
Yes. So, in a way, when you kind of move towards it, you bring your attention to it. You feel how it's moving in your body, and you go like right into it, like you're going into a hot bath.
Right.
Yeah, easing yourself into it, and gradually it will kind of burn up. It will dissolve.
So
Yeah.
the emotional state rises, reaches a point, and then it starts to dissipate and leave the body and leave your experience.
Yes, yes,
Right.
exactly. Um, but it's it's not it.
Yeah, it's a
It-
state changer. Moves
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's a state changer. It's like that pain is wanting your attention, it's wanting your presence. And so rather than switching on the TV or opening a packet of biscuits or whatever, you go towards it, you make space for it, you get present with it, you feel it, and it does dissolve.
Yeah, and that explains your arrival to me, because your arrival to me had all of that capacity. Because what we do in the clear method, as you well know, is that we basically help people into that capacity for themselves. And, you know, two principles that we do is, the first principle is introspection, being with your body, and the second principle is metacognition, listening to what it is that's happening in your head so that you can clear it. But you'd arrived already at that state through these practices, through these
Yes.
meditative practices, through this being with the pain, which in itself is quite helpful, really, isn't it?
It's very helpful. It's very helpful. Of course, after a while, you get curious as to why the pain keeps coming back
Yes.
and why certain things continue to trigger you.
Yes, because that's the reality.
Yes.
It's helpful, but not curative.
Yes. Yes, it's helpful, but it's not curative. And yeah, I mean, that was the thing that was missing, really. Like, how do you actually, rather than kind of transcending that, you know, dissolving that, which is kind of Eckhart Tolle's approach, you know, dissolving the pain body, as he calls it. How do you actually kind of get into the fabric of that pain, and in a way where your mind is a kind of ally and navigational aid, so you can listen to it, you can unpick its patterns, you can like tell the story of, you know, the pain in the most relevant way.
So this
Yeah.
is very different, isn't it? Because the practices that you were taught as you were moving through your life in this particular time with the pain was to work with it, or not work with it, but be in awareness of it, and that would dissolve it, but it kept repeating itself.
Well, yes, and you know, one of the kind of uh I'll call it an insight, because I can't think what else to call
Brilliant.
it. The insights of you know, contemporary spirituality is that pain is an illusion.
Yes, let's talk about that. My
Yeah.
favorite topic. Oh my God,
Yeah.
yes.
So of course, when you directly experience your pain, when you go in and you know, you dissolve it like that, it appears like, yes, it was an illusion, because all that's left is the awareness that was there, you know, as the pain arose, and it's the same awareness that you would go into the pain with, and it's the same awareness that was that's left at the end. So therefore, awareness is the only reality, and everything else is an illusion. But you know, that's not quite accurate.
Yeah, but the pain is an illusion. I love that, because in so many ways it is, and in so many ways it's not. You know,
Absolutely.
so there's this kind of duality
Yeah.
of how we understand pain, but yet in these traditions they want us to look at pain as an illusion so that we can detach, so that we don't, so that we're separate from the pain, so that the pain doesn't belong to us, so we don't identify. Because if we don't identify with the pain, if we don't attach to the pain, then we don't have to keep going back and living from it. That's the premise, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a very useful stage, you know, detachment as a way to come into a place where you can relate to your pain rather than from it.
Yeah,
That's really useful. But then
the
how,
reality.
yeah, how do you actually get into the reality of the
Yeah,
pain?
because let's talk about the other side of that, which is the reality of it, the human condition part of it.
Yes.
It is how the human condition operates, because when that pain arises in the body, as that pain arises, that pain will call upon the senses
Yeah.
to identify itself through the pain. So it'll call upon the eyes, it'll call upon the ears, it'll call upon the functioning of the mind.
Yeah.
I try and solve and soothe and identify the pain. So
Yes.
this is what it is to be human. So on one hand, then to stop that identification, to stop that seeing through the eyes of the pain, hearing through the eyes of the pain, acting through the eyes of the pain, being in the eyes of the pain, being the pain itself, then we can detach from it. Where does the pain go? Because it's still there in the body, and it'll still bring itself up and work through the senses in order to be, well, in order to be heard, one, but yes, in order to be expressed as the other. So then there's these two worlds, this world of detachment
Yes.
this word of, what's the word that you called it? It's not transcendence, it's, what was it?
Direct experience, or
Yes, brilliant. So there's that world of being with the pain, and it's dissolving, and then the separation. But then there's this real humanness,
yeah,
which is pain didn't go anywhere. It's still lodged in your body, and it's still going to speak through your mind.
yes, yeah,
That's
absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. So I was quite lucky in a way that some people seem to be able to detach to a degree that maybe they were either no longer aware of their pain, or they just kind of lived in that kind of dissociative place and were okay with that. I couldn't do that. The pain was too strong. It kept calling me back in. And there's only a certain amount of times you can transcend, or like have direct experience with something, or have like insights about something, and it's not going away before you realize, well, there's something else up here.
Yeah, but it's very like in the mindset game. It's very like, if this pain comes up, then I know how to focus on the positive. I know how to change my emotional state by physical movement.
Yes.
I know how to think. I know how to vision cast. I know it's the same. It's different principles, but it has the same outcome. What it does is it changes the emotional state within, and there is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. There is, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need these tools to help us navigate these painful times, or else we succumb to the pain, and that's not helpful either. So it's not an all in or all out, but it's just these, when we understand, you're talking about the spiritual world, and I'm just bringing some relevance to the minds. I call it the mindset world. What is there another word for it? I don't know. But this idea of, let's move the pain. Let's not be attached to the pain. Let's be attached to the vision. Let's be attached to the future, the person we want to create.
Yes.
Yes, somewhere in between, there's some sort of middle ground.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All of the kind of cognitive tools that I learned have been useful in this process of, what I've done with you in clearing, of learning how to, come into those somatic pathways and come into the root cause of, what's going on.
In order to cure it, so we're free from it. But and that's where we eventually get to. But in the meantime, right, just so we go back to these places that you're in this pain, and that you're transcending, or you're in this disassociation from the pain. Who are you in that space?
Interesting. Yeah, good question. Confused.
Okay,
I
really?
would say, yeah. And also, detached from that. So in a way, the bypassing thing, it's a beautiful intention. Yeah,
Yes.
we want a fast track. Because the pain feels too overwhelming to deal with. It feels, too painful to look under that rock, so to speak. So we want a fast track. We desperately want, can we find a quicker way? Is there a shortcut? And in a way, you can have these experiences when you are, on the spiritual search, when you're around spiritual teachers, reading books, things like that. You can have these experiences where you almost could believe that, the suffering is gone, that the pain is gone. And then, of course, you come back into the world, you come back into life, and, it gets triggered again.
And how do they handle that in those communities? If the pain comes back, which it inevitably has to, unless you disassociate it on a continuous basis. But how is that handled? How is that treated? Is that your fault because you're not holding the principles perfectly?
Depends which community you're in.
Right.
Some of them, it will be, the idea that you're buying into an illusion, or, you didn't have a full, realization yet, or
Right.
your mind isn't fully liberated, or something like that. Other times it will be that, you just need to deepen in your awareness, deepen in your understanding.
I can imagine how difficult that is. So say, for example, your core wounding is not enough. And I know not enough's never enough as an understanding of core wounding, but just say take that principle, because there have been plenty of people here, and I'm sure plenty of your clients, because this is the kind of work you do, plenty of people with woundedness of not enoughness, woundedness of lack, woundedness of worthlessness, woundedness of, laziness, not, that are often coming from the family system. Is it maybe not core woundedness, but part of the woundedness that we carry? I would imagine if your pain is worthlessness or not enoughness, and you take that to somebody and say, look, this isn't, this pain's still coming up. Oh, well, then that's because you're not trying hard enough. That's because you haven't had the fullness of the experience. That's because there's something missing in you here that you need to go back. You can imagine how re-traumatizing or re-wounding that would be on a continuous basis.
Yes. And, perhaps the, worst one is that, you're buying into an illusion of a self that believes it's wounded.
Okay. So the experience of the woundedness doesn't exist. The stories of the woundedness doesn't exist.
No, it belongs to an illusory sense of I, an illusory sense of self. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So that's the complete, bypass of humanity right there. And
wow, how sore is that? Because we've all had experiences, whether we've been hurt, and you give that beautiful description of that child who's abandoned and there is no one to care, no one to look after, no support, no security. So in those experiences, that will be deemed as, an illusory sense of self. So the original experience that was, and I know what you're talking about, we're talking about an image, not as, yes. Let's just be clear about that. If we've had these experiences in childhood, if we've been traumatized, then we're not allowed to, that's not allowed to be part of this narrative. We're not allowed to emote, not allowed to be in, not allowed to do the catharsis of reconnecting to that, to move through it. And that's not allowed. That's an illusory part of yourself, and yeah, just move past it.
Yeah, in some schools of spirituality, there are others that are kind of more integrative.
Brilliant.
I never really found any kind of spiritual teacher or philosophy or method or teaching that got to root cause like clearing method did.
Because isn't that the point? And maybe we'll go there now, because we could spend hours and hours going through this. Because, well, let's stay here, because I could jump in a million directions here. So I'm trying to be very disciplined, right? Wonderful. But let's stay here with the story. Let's stay here with the pain. Let's stay here with what did happen.
Yes.
And let's stay with your journey and what did happen and how you were able to eventually transcend that. And it wasn't in identifying it as an illusion. It was identifying it as true and real and solid part of your experience, which lies in your body. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The benefit of that, Hugh, for you was what? Being able to sit in the story of that and emote that. And
well, how can I say this? A good friend of mine has a saying that we didn't come to Earth to be spirits. Yeah. And yet spirituality had been a big part of my life. But I would say in that place of, coming in to contact with my root source, my core wounds, and hearing them, allowing them to move, and eventually healing. It was a kind of beautiful sort of reunification of spirit and human. Yes. That's the only way I can really describe it.
And I can describe it from another perspective, having never come from any spiritual understandings, or the words enlightenment or transcendence or oneness or non-duality. These words were like, what does that even mean? What is consciousness? That's well documented. Like who, what even is that? So I don't come from that word, but yet the experience that I had was that everything that is sought through those channels, joy, oneness, happiness, gratitude, love, being connected to that is beyond me, that they came as a byproduct of actually clearing the pain.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They were more sustainable. Sorry, they were more sustainable, Hugh.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. When you are in the kind of bypassing or transcending, or just, for want of a better term, soothing experiences where you connect with those innate qualities of joy, compassion, love, unification, whatever. They are kind of more fleeting experiences. Whereas when you really come to rest in your essence as a product of healing your pain, then those experiences are no longer experiences. They are there, tangible, real, flowing, alive.
When you come to, I'm going to just quote you and go back. You have to listen to this quote. I'll not do it right now. But you said, when you come to rest in your essence, after clearing your pain, those experiences are tangible.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful quote. When you come to rest in your essence after clearing your pain, because it's the only place that you can arrive to. You can only arrive back to yourself, having known yourself for the first time.
Yes.
You can only arrive back there. That quote that I butcher all the time. But you can only arrive back there after the healing, and as you continue to heal, and because we're not saying that this is a one-off, one-stop shop, as you continue to heal, you come back to yourself, and as you know yourself, then you're connected to the realist essence of who you are. And that place is a more sustainable, natural place.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the core of love and curiosity and just wonderment, if that's a word, that I knew as a child, but now it has wisdom with it.
And that's been the process of clearing the pain.
Yeah.
And what's that journey back to essence like? And back to the place that you started at, but you arrive back through the pain, which is just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it just incredible?
It is. Yeah. So, I mean, that's it. I mean, when you dismiss that stuff as an illusion, you're depriving yourself of the gateway.
There it is. When you dismiss that stuff as an illusion, you're depriving yourself of the gateway in which you can travel through and get to that place anyway.
Yeah.
That's the bridge. The bridge is the pain.
Yes.
The bridge to what we seek, which is peace and happiness and joy, is through the pain, not as an over the pain, but through it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Who'd have thought? Here,
yeah. It's completely different, I have to say, from the kind of detached, flatline spiritual experience. It's fully embodied, fully alive. It's space for joy, love, and all of it. But it's also, the space for the humanness of pain, which arises sometimes,
and navigates our lives,
and
navigates our essence. This is the thing. The pain navigates the essence, because it's the essence that knows what's needed.
Yes.
It knows what, it knows what it needs to live a fulfilling, actualized life. And when the pain that we have comes up, in a way, that's the actualizing tendency, or the pain, or the essence saying this isn't right for you. So whether that's childhood trauma, or whether it's now, in the now, when we're living lives in the now, that says, there's a warning here, Shauna, Hugh, that you're not fully aligned.
Yeah.
You're not fully living as close to that essence
Yeah.
as you want to be. I certainly feel that all the time. I feel the call to move out of Ireland. I feel the call for expansion. I
Yes.
feel the call. That's a constant. And sometimes what will happen there is that there'll be this dip in energy. There'll be this, we call pain, but there'll be this lethargy. There'll be this boredom. There'll be this, I know they're low level feelings, but
Yes.
it's still the signal. It's still the awareness of pain. There's still the overwhelm of loving the way I'm loving, which at the minute's probably, too heavily work based. All of these signals,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
if
Yeah.
we're not availing them, how do we course correct?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. It becomes about, listening to the, signals from our essence, from our core.
Mm,
'Cause ultimately, like for me, it's a core of it's a core of love and curiosity, and authentic becoming. And if I'm spending my time on things that are not in alignment with that, then I'm going to feel pain. And some of those things you can't move straight away. Some of those things you can't change straight away. But you're at least in a place of autonomy and awareness. And of course, autonomy doesn't mean feeling blissful and joyful all of the time. It means being clear and self-governing in whatever is showing up.
but isn't that such a different life from the life that you went in search of?
Very different.
Isn't it? But it's available for all of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing is, there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do to get to that place. And, you know, generally, I can identify with this. I can understand this. I think people don't want to do it, or they're scared to do it. And, maybe you need that time of, being in personal development, being in the spiritual path and things like that, to come to a point where you realize, there's work to do and I've just got to do it.
Do you think it helps you build up a capacity to do the work? Do you think the spiritual or the spiritual side, or the personal development mindset side, helps you build up a level of capacity and awareness that then eventually leads you to a different? Is that what you're finding with the clients that come to you, that they've got so far and then are ready, kind of like your own journey, but
Yeah.
it helps them in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can remember having a conversation with Jeff Brown 10 years ago. And I asked him, I said, Jeff, can you tell me how you got to your place? How did you, do your healing? What happened? And he kind of said that he just really, really, really wanted to.
Mhm.
And at the time, I was like, yeah, and I know I'm not there yet. I know I'm not in that place. I want an end to the pain, but I'm not in that place where I really, really, really want to do the work. And when I came across your TED talk, I'd got there.
Yes, and that was that moment, a coming together of moments where somebody had been, I think recently I put up a post, and a huge reaction. It said something like, I'm going to butcher it again, but it said something like, recover so loudly,
Mm,
recover so loudly that nobody dies in silence.
yes, lovely.
And that was what that TED talk was doing.
Yeah,
That was me recovering really loudly from the pain within, from the
yes,
great bypass of mindset work, from the great bypass of not being able to manage it. But that was me recovering loudly so that nobody like you would have to wither in silence or not know the way. But you're doing that now, aren't you, for your clients? You're recovering loudly. This is you recovering loudly, saying, I understand the bypass world, I understand the spiritual world, and you'll find a place that you'll get to where you too are ready to recover loudly.
Yes, yes, yes. I need to turn up the volume a little bit more, I
I
feel.
think you do, Hugh. I think you need to turn up the volume a whole lot more, particularly in that community that you know so well, particularly in that world that you know so well. Because
Yes.
if we don't turn it up, and that's the point, right? If we don't turn it up, what happens? If I didn't turn it up, if I didn't turn up that voice, if I didn't turn, what happens? The chain reaction of that's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm very, very grateful that you did turn it up. I'm grateful that Jeff Brown turned it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the baton passed on, isn't it? Because that is what happens.
Yes.
There's the oneness. There's the unity. There's the human connection. Because now you're recovering and have recovered very, well, and now to recover loudly seems to be the next step. What's that sound like?
Yeah, it's wonderful, and of course, it's not wonderful all of the time. I mean, we've talked about the joys of stacking shelves at the supermarket, and just having a life that's very simple. But I think I won't kind of be at rest in myself unless I'm doing what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And what you're doing now is explain a wee bit about what you're doing now in case anybody wants to reach out to you.
Well, I'm still helping people with addictions, which is something I've done for a long time. But most of my clients are therapists, coaches, spiritual practitioners who find themselves in that place where I found myself in, early 2020, of having sort of exhausted all possibilities and, wanting to find a way to finally heal, to find healing at last, so to speak.
Healing at last. There's the plug for the new book. Okay, on that note, it has been a pleasure to be part of your healing journey. And it has been a pleasure that the Clear Method gets to be part of your story and the work that you do now for your clients. And yeah, there's a sneaking suspicion on me that it's going to get louder. You're going to get louder. And that's, we may come back and revisit some of the material in this. So if you're listening to this and you're inquisitive about any of the material that has come up, or you'd like some deeper understanding of it, I think we could have spent hours. I'm looking at the time here and we're finished. We're on about an hour already.
Wow.
So, I think there was so much to explore in that, and we just probably skimmed the surface of it, and we may come back to it. But as you're listening to this podcast, hopefully that it has helped you, and that it has shone light on maybe where you are in yourself and you resonate with some of this stuff. Reach out and let us know. And if you'd like me and Hugh to come back to this, because I think there's so much on this, then maybe we'll do that. Let me know about that as well. How was that, Hugh? How do you feel? Or do you feel complete enough to end here, and maybe we'll pick it up?
Yeah, absolutely. It is like you say. We could have spoken much longer and covered much more, but I feel happy with what we've done today. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hugh. Thanks, and hopefully this is as helpful to you as it was to me. For it certainly was. I learned lots of interesting stuff, and let us know how you find this, and see you on the next podcast. Thanks so much. Bye for now.